So I want to first welcome you all for signing up for this program. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for reaching out to us um, to want to do this here program. So I see it's 7:06, so we're about to get started. I want to welcome two members of the League of Women Voters, Cindy Gordon and Ellen Kemp.
I'm going to now share my screen so you can follow along with. Thank you, Sharon, and thank you to the library. This is wonderful that the library is willing to put on this program for us on voter registration day. We have a very short time between now and the election, and there are so many things different in this year's election that it's well worth learning as much about it as you can. The League of Women Voters was founded in 1920, 100 years ago, after the passage of the 19th Amendment. We are committed to protecting the right to vote and to assure safe and secure elections. We're a nonpartisan organization, and we are trying to promote politically responsible, informed, and active participation in government. And although our name derives from our proud legacy with the suffrage movement, our members are currently include men and women dedicated to safeguarding democracy. So with that, we will get started. Today is National Voter Registration Day. If you didn't know that, if you haven't seen it on Facebook or many other social media outlets. Right now, all day today, thousands of national organizations, volunteers are taking part in events like this to encourage people to register to vote in advance of the election in November. Since National Voter Registration Day was established in 2012, nearly 3 million Americans have registered to vote on National Voter Registration Day. Before we get in, actually just a few words about the election. As I'm sure you all know, 2020 is quite different due to the pandemic as how we are going to vote. In New Jersey, all registered voters will automatically get ballots in the mail. You should get your ballot by October 6th. If you haven't received it by October 10th, you should contact your county clerk to check on why you don't have it. You will not get a sample ballot. So when the ballot arrives, it's actually the ballot. It isn't the sample ballot that you used to get that you could look at to see what was going to be on the ballot before you went to vote. This is your actual ballot. And there are several ways you can cast your ballot. But before you can cast your ballot, you have to be registered. So what we want to do is first talk about how you can make sure that you're registered, and if you aren't registered, what you have to do. It's fairly easy. It's just that you need to know the rules. In order to vote in New Jersey, you must be a United States citizen. You may vote at the age of 18, but if you are 17, you may register if you will turn 18 before the election. So you don't have the problem that you aren't allowed to vote because you aren't going to turn 18 until November 2nd. You can register ahead of time. You must be a resident of the county for 30 days before the election. And just move this. And you may not be serving a sentence of incarceration as the result of a conviction of any offense under the laws of New Jersey or any other state in the United States. As we will also hopefully mention and maybe talk about later, in New Jersey, starting this year, ex-felons can vote. There's no restriction. If you have served your term and you are a free person, you may vote. You don't have to pay any court fines before vote. You can vote. You have the right to vote. Now, if you're not sure if you're registered, you can go to this webpage, government, which I think Cindy might put in the chat box, but
I did.
believe me, every county, the state of New Jersey, municipalities, the League of Women Voters, most libraries all have election web pages right now, and they almost all have links to find out if you're registered and other voting information. But if you go to this site, you can check to see if you're registered. And all you have to do is put in your name and your date of birth, and it will pop up, and you will see if you're registered. You'll see it's over here on the right. You'll see your election history. You'll see what ballots you've done in the past. It's all right there. And so if you do that and you're registered, then you're fine. There's nothing else you have to do. If you aren't registered, or if you've never voted before, you might have that. If you've never voted before, you have to register. But you also might want to register if you've recently moved, especially if you've moved from another county, certainly if you've moved from another state, but even if you've moved from another county. And in fact, even if you've moved within the county and changed your address, it makes sense to update that information by registering. And if you've changed your name is another reason. And also if this is your first election, because you're going to be 18 between now and the election. Another change in New Jersey this year is starting in September, we now have online voter registration. So you don't have to go and you don't have to fill out a paper registration form. You don't have to go to the Board of Elections. You can do it online. You go to this web page and fill out the information and you're registered. This started in September 5th, on September 5th. The easiest way to do it, of course, is if you already have a driver's license or a New Jersey ID card, because then all you have to do is put in that number and you can then fill in the information for registering. If you don't have a driver's license, social security number, but then you must also be able to upload a digital signature. Or if you're sitting on, if you're doing it from a mobile device, you can actually enter a signature on the tablet or the phone. If you cannot do either of these things, if you don't have a driver's license, or if you can't produce a digital signature, then you can't register online. The other way, before we get to what you have to do if you can't register online, the other way you can register is, if you see over on the right-hand side of the screen, you can now register using this QR code, which you would take a picture of this with your phone, and that will take you right to the site. Someone's entered the waiting room. Okay. And that will take you right to the site. And again, you can do the same thing to register. If you cannot do either of those things, if you cannot do any of those things and you have to register on paper, again, you don't have to go to the Board of Elections or the county clerk. You can go to the website of either the state or your county, and registration forms are online. And you can download the registration form, print it out, and send it in. It's in a a sheet of paper that you fold in 3, and it makes it an envelope, and it's already postage paid, and you just send it in. And if you can't do that, there are places where you can go get forms. You can get forms at the county clerks or at the Board of Elections. Many libraries have forms. If you can't find a form, send an email to us at lwvprinceton.org, and we will see that you get a registration form. They're available in, I don't know how many, but many languages. I'm not sure how many. It depends. And actually, that pretty much depends on the county as to how many different languages they have the forms in. I mentioned that almost any that the state, the county, the league, libraries, everybody right now has voting information online. One place that's a very good resource is the league's Vote 411 website, which is vote411.org. And if you go there, it is election information that is based on your address. You put in your address, and you can then find out what's on your ballot. You can see where you vote. You can, and it has links to registration, to checking your status. It has all the information all in one place. So it's a very good resource. As I'm sure you are aware, the rumors about this election and the false information and there's just an incredible amount of information out there. What you want to be sure is if you read something, somebody tells you something, that this is how something is going to work, check, and you're not sure, here are some great resources to check your facts. I mean, there's a lot of confusing and conflicting information. So you want to go to a legitimate source of information, and here are some good examples. The Center for Public Integrity, factcheck.org, and PolitiFact. They are all good fact-checking organizations where you can ask your questions and find out if some piece of information that you heard, if it is true or not. Now, the key election dates, the main one for registering to remember is October 13th. That is the last day you can register to vote in the November election. As I said before, October 5th is the deadline for the mail-in ballots to supposedly reach all registered voters, active registered voters. So if you don't get your mail-in ballot shortly after that, you should pursue why you didn't get it. The first step, of course, which you should do before you get your ballot, is check and make sure you're registered if you're not sure. But if you are registered, you should get this by October 5th. And election day is November 3rd. November 5th is the last day to mail-in ballots. November 10th is the last day to receive ballots with postmarks. And that pretty much covers the basics of registering and making sure that you're registered to vote. And if we have any questions on that or anything on the election in particular, that would be fun. We'd be happy to answer them. And one thing while we're waiting is, because of the number of mail-in ballots and the fact that anybody who decides to vote in person at the polling place will have to vote with a provisional ballot using paper, all the boards of election, all the counties are looking for poll workers. So, and that's a paid position. If you're interested in doing that, please apply. On the state website, there's an application form for poll workers. So that would be, and if you're interested in doing that, there are certainly positions available.
Can I bring up one point?
Yep.
We want to also make sure people understand about the homeless population. So homeless individuals can register. They can register wherever their quote unquote homeless site is. So if it's the park bench right in front of the Plainsboro Library, if that's their official place, then they can register. So we want to make sure that homeless people understand that they can register to vote also.
And that reminds me too, Jennifer, is that there are special provisions for victims of domestic violence. If you don't want to publicize your address, if you don't want something mailed to you, you should contact your county board of elections or clerk, and they'll make special provisions.
I've got a quick question. Can you please repeat the last date for the mail-in ballots in November?
November 10th, I think it is the last day to receive ballots that are postmarked.
November 10th, okay.
Right. A week after they have to come in by a week after the election.
Okay.
And another, a great resource getting closer to the election is everything is run, everything is different depending on your county. But all of the counties are working very hard to get everything posted. And while I don't know, all the Dropboxes aren't necessarily posted yet, they will be. And going to the county board of elections for most counties to their website, you can get the latest information, and they'll keep updating it as they get more information.
So I just posted the Middlesex County Board of Elections information in the chat box. So if you live in Plainsboro, Middlesex is the county you would go to. Ellen, can you tell us more about the fact that the parolees are allowed to vote this year?
Right, that is again new this year. Anyone who is on parole, released, have finished their term, are no longer incarcerated, are totally eligible to vote. And I know that a member of our local league is working with an organization who are working with ex-offenders to mostly virtually now, of course, because everything is virtually, but to get them back into society. And one of the things they're stressing is that many parolees, ex-felons, don't realize that they have the right to vote. They just assume that once they've been in prison, they cannot vote. But in New Jersey, that is not the case. Once you have once you're no longer incarcerated, you can vote. I would assume that, however, you should be sure, if you know anyone in that situation, that they should check their registration, because they probably are not actively an active registered voter. So they should, or they re-register.
So two quick things. I apologize.
Sure.
I apologize if you already mentioned this. I had to step away for
That's okay.
but I learned on the NPR station that I listened to things that I thought was very important. Number one, you can track whether or not your ballot has been received. Did you mention that already?
I did not, but that's a very good point, because that is actually one of the, it isn't difficult, it is just not well worded on the state website. If you go to the New Jersey election site, they have a whole election page. And one of the things under the election page is track your ballot. In order to track your ballot, you have to register with the state, because it's going into your election information. So you have to log in with your, I can't remember, I've done it, with your, probably your name and social security number. But then once you do this registration, then you have to pick a user ID. And it looks as though on the form, as though it was already created for you. Like it says, enter your voter ID. But basically what it's really telling you is make it up and create a password.
And what Ellen is talking about, just to be clear, is not registering to vote. It's registering to be part of the state registration system so that you can get the tracking.
So you can get that information, right?
And then my second thing, and again, I apologize if you
That's
mentioned
okay.
it already, but if you submit your vote by mail, but then also decide to show up.
If you go into a polling place on election day and decide that you want to vote, which of course you shouldn't do if you've already submitted your mail-in ballot, but if you do, you have to vote provisionally, which means you're not voting in a voting machine, you will fill out a paper ballot, because the the way the ballots are counted is the mail-in ballots will be counted, and then when the paper provisional ballots are counted, they will be checked. And if, when they come to your paper ballot, they see that they already have a ballot from you that was mailed in, they will not count your paper ballot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I wasn't sure if you mentioned that. I
But-
learned from the NPR. So it's your mailing, the mailing ballot would be the primary one you would select, right?
the mail-in ballot is the primary one, yes, because the provisional ballot is, they go and check to make sure that you haven't voted any other way. And so,
But if you don't use the mail-in ballot, you can show up on election day and use the provisional.
you still have to
process
show,
that you're
yes,
talking
you still,
about.
but you still have to vote provisionally, because they have
Okay.
no way of knowing when you come in, especially
Right.
this year, because every registered voter will receive a mail-in ballot. So the assumption is that you got a mail-in ballot and that
And you'll use it.
and that you used it. The other thing you can do, again, which we're not really recommending because it will just make for more lines and take longer, is that you can complete your mail-in ballot, put it in the envelope, and then take it to the polls on election day. But then you'll have to stand in line and give it to someone, and it will just make,
Yeah.
you know, it will just mean more people in the polling place.
Mhm.
The whole,
For some
Elect-
communities, I mean, I know that certain communities have felt that in the past, there may have been some shenanigans with their right to vote. So we do want to make sure that those communities who are fearing that their ballots may be lost in the mail, or there are some communities who are not trusting the drop boxes, that option of actually handing in your completed ballot at the polling place is available. It will take more manpower, and we don't know how much time you would have to be online, but there are communities who are telling me, you know what, I just want to make sure that someone from the Board of Elections officially takes my ballot and puts it where it needs to go. So we want to make sure people know that option is available, which was not available in the primary.
Right.
So we
Right.
can't-
No, and I have talked to people who have said that they don't care drop boxes, or that they can mail it. They want to actually give it to someone. The other thing you can do is take it personally to the Board of Elections before, and then in that case, you would also be handing it to someone.
So where are the Dropboxes in Plainsboro?
Most drop boxes will be, at least one should be at a municipal building. They will be posted on probably on the Mercer County site. Jennifer,
No,
oh
it's
no,
Middle-
they will be posted on the Middlesex County
Yeah.
site. There were
Mhm.
only 11 or 12 drop boxes for the primary. There will be probably in the 20s for the general election. The hope is to have a drop box in every municipality.
I know that
More than one in some of the larger ones.
there's definitely one at the Plainsboro Municipal Building, which there was in the primary, and we know there are going to be many more.
I know there's one in the South Brunswick Municipal building too, in the front.
You know, I don't normally watch 60 Minutes, but I was on a Zoom chat on Sunday and everyone wanted to watch 60 Minutes. So we broke for 20 minutes and they did the whole thing about vote by mail. But one of the things that we saw in the 60 Minutes, the drop boxes that they had in the piece for Pennsylvania looked like a regular post box. I mean, it really did look like a regular where you put your mail in blue. That is not the same in New Jersey. I want people to understand that in New Jersey, the drop boxes are a little bit more secure than what was shown in Pennsylvania, because they have to make it so that no one can put their hand in and reach and take out the envelope. Whereas on the 60-minute piece, it was just like a regular mailbox. So I know other people were calling me on Sunday saying, is this what a drop box looks like? That's just like a mailbox.
Yeah.
I said, I know what Pennsylvania is like, but in New Jersey, it's a slot. You cannot put your hand in it. It's under everywhere under 24-hour surveillance.
And I think you can show a picture if you would move forward to that end slide. I think there's
Oh,
a
right.
New Jersey Dropbox. It's not necessarily that one you just went past.
Here you are. See over on the bottom where it says, and that's something else. However you vote, unless you're walking in on election day, do it as soon as possible. The mail-in ballots they will start to count them. They can start to count them 10 days before the election. So if they have a lot of mail-in ballots, they can start counting them right away, and they don't have to wait to get 90% of them on the election day or the day before. It would be really very helpful if they have a lot to start with. They count them. They do not release any figures. It is a felony to even, they don't total anything. They just open them and count them.
So as we're saying, we're lucky in the state of New Jersey, our drop boxes look totally different in the sense of they're red, white, and blue, and every county has the same look for the drop boxes for consistency. One of the things I've been hearing in the chats in the last couple of weeks with the vote by mail, people have been asking me, well, my neighbor down the street, he or she is elderly, and they don't want to put it in the mail, and they can't get to a drop box. Can I just take their ballot and submit it? And so what we want people to understand that once you take someone else's ballot, you are officially considered a bearer. You have been charged as a chain of receipt with that ballot. And in New Jersey, you can only be a bearer for 3 other ballots. So while it may be a public good and a good Samaritan to help the neighbor down the street, your auntie, and your best friend, and another person, in New Jersey, you can only be someone's ballot deliverer or bearer for 3 people.
And Jennifer, that's the part on the ballot when you have to fill in and indicate and
Right.
sign.
But sometimes people won't even fill it out. They figure they're just doing a good job and
Right.
helping the neighbor. And I just want to make sure, because we don't want anything to happen where someone's ballot may not be counted, because these are under video surveillances. So I don't want the good neighbor to be seen on a video camera with like 6, 7, 8, 10, a whole box full of ballots and dropping them in the secure boxes or handing them in at the polling station, because those ballots may be invalidated because you can't be a bearer by more than 3.
Right. You may remember, I think it was North Carolina where someone was convicted of
Yeah.
bringing in 50 or 60 ballots, and it raises the specter of, did these 50, 60 people really vote, or did this person just have their ballots? So that will probably, not for this election, but next year there will be, there's going to be a change in that. If you have a larger family group, you might be able to, bring in your entire family's ballots. But for now, it's 3. Anything else? I have one last non-election reminder that I forgot about this morning. If you have not, please fill out the census. The deadline for the census is September 30th.
I know the Plainsboro Library just sent out some information about that to remind everybody of how
South Brunswick Library did also.
Yeah.
So, Middlesex County, I guess it was, sent it all out, but.
Yeah, we're at the end of the time for that. It's very important. We do have some references in the chat box if you wanted to copy any of those links, either to check your registration status, the online registration, if you want to go to Middlesex County to see what they have posted. By the way, in terms of the Dropbox locations and the polling locations, I believe the counties have posted some, but there may be more. You may get a list of what was there for the primary. I can't tell you for sure.
Can't remember at this point. I don't think they're all posted yet.
I don't think they're all
but there will be at least double the number that there were for the.
But if you check today and you don't see something near you and you really want that information, check back in a few weeks and see it. it will possibly change.
And if you have any questions about any of this or anything about elections, you can check our webpage, but also our email is lwvprinceton@gmail.com, and send us a question. I had a question today about tracking the ballots and exactly how you could track your ballot. But
And don't forget,
willing and happy. And if you need a registration form, just contact us and we'll help any way we can.
Yeah,
okay.
I just added the link to how to track your ballots in New Jersey, those that want it.
Very good. Thank you,
Good.
Tiffany. That's great.
That's in the chat. I'm sorry. You're saying that's in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Open the
I'm on
chat
the
window.
phone. I'm on the phone. So if someone could just tell me again, is that the site, New Jersey election site?
If you go to the New Jersey election site and they have a whole voting information page from the site,
Okay.
one of the options is track your ballot. And if you don't find it, send us an email and we'll send it to you.
And Sharon, I don't want to steal your thunder, but the Plainsboro Library has been very helpful, and they're scheduling another session like this. Our thought was that we would focus on voter registration today, and then in a few more weeks, I don't know if we have an exact date yet, I think it will be in mid-October, we're going to do another session, and we'll be closer to the election, and I think we're going to have more details on things like where the Dropboxes are, and we'll be able to focus more on the specifics of how to track your ballot, what's going to be on the ballot, and we may have info on where the locations will be. And I think by that time, people will have received their ballot, so it'll be kind of interesting because you'll have been able to look at a ballot, and you may have more questions based on seeing it.
Right. So
I know that Middlesex County has a video, and I think several other counties have videos on exactly how to fill out the mail-in ballot, step by step of what you need to sign and where you need to put the little envelope into the big envelope and seal it and sign your name. I mean, a lot of the ballots that got thrown out in the primary were because people forgot to sign them. There is a process in place called curing the ballot that if your signature doesn't match, you'll hear back. You'll get told and you'll be able to signature. But again, we'll go over this on the next programs. But vote early, so that if anything goes wrong, you'll be able to check it, and that they can start counting as soon as possible.